Blockchain Center, to Erica, Jorge, Josh, and the rest of the team for making this happening. So for us, it's really great opportunity to share not only with the local community from the Blockchain Center, but some of you that are coming from other places for the Bitcoin conference. So it's really a great opportunity, and we are honored. So today, we will be looking to one topic that we've been working a lot in the past 2 years, and that we see every time is getting more and more traction, is how you are getting blockchain together with communities, in particularly with innovation communities and with creative communities. So we are going to be very focused on that. And all this is going to be inside the concept of exponential organizations. Exponential organization is a framework that was developed by Salim Ismail back in 2014. It's a bestseller book that allows companies to manage all the changes that are happening in the industry. And I will not say much more on that because we have Salim, a short video from him. He couldn't make it today, but he prepared a video for us, so I will have him talking a little bit more about it. And then once we understand a little bit, we are not going to go in that deep on the EXO, but you understand that a little bit, we are going to present how blockchain projects are really exponential organizations and how they are connected. And then we will go into the examples, the EXO token from the EXO community, the Rutanio token, the token of the city of Medellin, and then we will end with a panel discussion. The objective for all of us is to really take some value back to home for each of us and really learn something and take something out of it that you are going to execute and you are going to follow up. So with no more introductions, I want to have Salim with us here. He prepared this short video for us, and I think it's the perfect introduction.
Hi folks, I'm Salim Ismail. I'm the founding executive director of University. I'm also a Miami native. I wrote a book called Exponential Organizations, and I serve on the board of the X Prize Foundation. Super excited about the conference. I wish I could be there, but I'm there in spirit. I'm a Miami native, and we've been building an ecosystem that we've been working on for a few years now to solve what we call the immune system globally. You know, if you try and do anything disruptive, the antibodies attack you in a big company, or in public sector, bankers are fighting Bitcoin and taxis are fighting Uber. And what our ecosystem does, it launches and releases tool sets to try and solve those problems. So we started in the private sector working with companies like Procter & Gamble and Black & Decker, HP, Visa, and we've released a set of tools that allow you to transform a company at scale. And then we worked in the public sector, created a nonprofit called the Fast Track Institute out of Miami, worked with Mayor Jimenez and Francis Suarez to try and solve public transportation in Miami. That launched successfully a few weeks ago. And now we have a global community of almost over 3,000 people in 100 countries. And we created an Exos token to try and view and bind the community together. We found that using a crypto type of structure provides a much more stable underpinning and a gravity well to allow us to all to operate in a combined ecosystem. In fact, Rocker Labs, a local mining company, has purchased $15 million worth of the token with their public company shares. We also have participation from Accenture in this economy, along with some other blue chip companies. And the city of Medellin has now created a copy of our world to run their innovation ecosystem. So we're really excited about the prospects of where we go with this. I'm massively bullish about crypto and tokens in general. I think this is the future of how we're going to navigate the world. So wish I could be there, but have a great conference, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Salim. And I think it's great hearing from Salim, but I know we have some members from the EXO community here. So I want them to share with you very briefly their own experience, what it's been, for them to do it. So we will start with Vanessa here. So Vanessa, please tell us what is your experience with the EXO and working closely with Salim, because you spend a lot of time with him.
Way to put me on the spot, Cesar. Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa. I am actually more the community marketing kind of facilitator for the EXO community. Just this year alone, we went from 400 to 3,000 people. So this particular initiative has really helped us just gain notoriety, just gain this amazing leg up in our community, and really has helped us with certifications and help people really be able to facilitate awesome projects and initiatives with the community. So we're just excited for the growth and the opportunity to be early adopters in an exponential community. So hope that you guys can learn more about EXO, and happy to share my story and share a little bit more if you want to talk to me afterwards as well. And I'll pass it to Curtis, who's one of our awesome community members.
Oh my God.
Curtis,
Vanessa.
come to the front of the room.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we are streaming.
Oh, hello everyone. Hello world. Every developer here knows that joke, right? Hello world. Come on, developers. All right. I know it's not a very funny joke. So Curtis Michelson, or in Miami they call me Curi because they can't say Curtis, so you can call me Curi. I live in Orlando now. I joined this community in February of last year. I'm part of several different networks and about 10 different Slack channels. This has got to be my favorite because it's people like Cesar, Vanessa, Salim, who are really changing their mission, massive transformative purpose, is transforming the world for a better future. And that's not just a slogan. They are applying exponential technologies to solve exponentially complex problems, like mobility in Miami, or healthcare in Medellin, or wherever. So it's not just, corporate stuff. We're doing amazing kind of world transforming work around the globe. So I'm really happy to be here, and I don't want to take up any more time.
That's great. Thank you, Curtis. We will hear more about the EXO token in the second presentation, but now I want to introduce Michael Monique. Michael is based in UK. We are very decentralized, and he's going to join us via Zoom. He's going to talk particularly how blockchain projects are exponential projects and how those two things are together, and he will set up the framework from the two examples that we are going to discuss later in the afternoon. So, Michael, are you with us now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, just give me a second. I will put you on the screen. You are there now.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Michael from Untitled Chapter. Just allow me to switch my presentation and let me know if you can hear me, okay?
Yeah, we hear you okay.
So first of all, apologies, I couldn't make it. It was actually quite tricky for me as well. So I'm connecting with you from England. And I'll talk a bit more about token economies and also exponential organizations. So you might have heard a bit about exponential organizations, and you might hear about tokens as well. It's just I'll try to frame it in a slightly different way that will help us discuss some of the topics a bit. So three things that I would like to cover today is EXOs, so exponential organizations. Then a little bit about OpenExO, exos as a token, and also exponential blockchain projects. And then Kent will talk more about those specifics. And then basically build a bit of ground in terms of our thinking related to creating economies, which means that this is something that we really can do now thanks to those exponential transformative technologies. But before jumping into frameworks, question here. Does anyone recognize the gentleman?
Not. Yeah, I'm asking here, but I see in general nobody recognizes him.
Okay, so this gentleman is called Craig Venter. So in 1990, so almost 50 years ago, he decided to lead a project to sequence the first human genome, the complete sequence. So that was supposed to take 15 years, it was $6 billion. And then in 1997, so halfway through the period of time, he was roughly 1% done. So of course, press was not very happy, auditors were not very happy, they were telling him to quit. But of course, there was another gentleman, and his name is Ray Kurzweil, he's a futurist, and he said like, hey, no problem, we're still on track. Now, you can try to guess or one the product was completed. And in 1997, it was only 1% down. And why it happened is because genome sequencing is an example of an exponential technology that is doubling in price performance very, very fast. So in the period of year, maybe 2 years, not decade. And that's also kind of counterintuitive because if we think about the blockchain, drones, independent AI, we don't see those doubling patterns very fast in this accelerated pace of change. And our thesis for this whole presentation is that blockchain is this kind of exponential technology. We can do some new things using it that we were not able to do before. But of course, we talk technology, we also talk people, but we also talk business. So now a question to you: have you ever thought about running a restaurant or a pub in Miami?
So any hands up? How many? No, they are not in the restaurant business, Michał.
No, okay.
They are in the
And,
blockchain business. Do you know most of them own more than 10 cryptos?
Yeah, so I understand why, because you probably think it's a hard business, and I would agree with you. It's a hard business, it's difficult to grow, because if you want to do more business, you need to offer more seats for the people. So maybe you buy another restaurant, or maybe you're a bit smarter, you try to go in the direction of Starbucks. So if you create a brand and then there is more scarcity, you can increase the prices. Or maybe you go further than that and you try to scale like McDonald's, because McDonald's nowadays is basically in the real estate business. Because what they do is they find the best real estate, and then someone else just takes over the restaurant in a franchise model. So then you haven't thought about starting a restaurant in Miami, but what about creating an app?
What about the app developers? A couple of hands, 3, 4, 5, yes? 6?
Okay, so there is an ad in Miami nowadays that for less than 200K you can get a restaurant. But then this app, which is basically your app, which allows you to very quickly send a message to someone from your contact list, it got $1 million. And this might be a bit puzzling, but then if I add one more company to the list, which is Instagram, which is sold for more than $1 billion, it's even more puzzling. And the key difference between those is you have a small and medium enterprise, because Instagram, when it was sold, it had only 18 employees, but they do some things very differently. So one of them we would call a traditional company, and the other one we would call an exponential organization, because it has disproportionate impact. Why is that? No, it's a bit longer story, but we can dive into that. So basically, what are exponential organizations and why you think they are relevant? So first of all, Exponential Organizations is a book, and it was a book published 5 years ago, and it's an experiential framework, which means it didn't come from the sky that there are 10 attributes, but rather Salim and the co-authors, they studied a lot of different companies and came up with different patterns that the companies that have disproportionate impact in the world, they follow those attributes. And those attributes are basically patterns or things that those companies do differently, fall into two groups of 5. And what is really important is that each of them, so each exponential organization, should be driven by an MTP, which is a massive transformative purpose. So you can think of that as a bit more than a mission statement. It's basically like a North Star and a very aspirational, noble goal that they want to reach. And then they can tap into the abundance and then manage the abundance using those attributes. What I mean by that, because if you think about Instagram would not be possible 15 or 20 years ago when we still had camera on film. It was possible because everything became digital, people had access to the internet, it was very easy to connect people, and also they offered something that was not possible before, so basically any amateur would start looking as a professional photographer because of the filters that they did. So we have those different groups of attributes, and there are 10 of them, and just going very quickly. So there's stuff on demand, so you can think of Upwork or maybe Uber drivers. There's the community and crowd, kind of like creators on Wikipedia. Then you have algorithms like Google. You can leverage assets like Airbnb does with houses. You can drive engagement and incentives, kind of like Fortnite. Then you can create interfaces for interconnecting people and things like Zapier. or if this then that. You can create the dashboards like Tableau. You can experiment like Amazon. You can have autonomy like Hire, which actually in the US is G devices. And then also you can share information in a social manner like Slack does. So when you have all those 10 things, you can start building those EXOs or EXO companies. And of course, we talk about OpenExO and we talk about EXO economy. So we can start with our MTP, which is transform the world for a better future. And if it sounds really big, if it sounds really bold, if it sounds maybe even a little bit ridiculous, it's fine because it means, it's big enough and it's worth going after. So then the key question is, how can we transform the world for a better future? And of course, we can transform the world for a better future using our own methodology, so using our own EXO attributes. We have community and we have stuff on demand. So as Vanessa was mentioning, at this point in time, we have more than 3,000 members in 90 or 100 different countries that work on stuff on demand model. So basically, they assemble and disassemble for specific projects as small organizations. We have interfaces and algorithms. Of course, we have our own token. We will talk a bit more about that. And we also have our own platform with our own marketplace and services. We also have a lot of autonomy and experimentation. So basically, if you're interested in doing an EXO sprint, which is one of our, let's say, key offering, you can just get a book and you can do it by yourself. And there are many members of the community that they started their own companies or offer those services. And of course, we also do experimentation. So you can think of Fluidchains, basically, Cesar, Najib, who are with you, also me. Kent will be talking in a second, and then Policarpo will be talking after that. We decided to create Fluidchains as an experiment connecting EXO, so exponential organizations, and blockchain projects. And then also, as Curtis mentioned before, there's Fast Track Institute, which had the pilot project trying to apply EXO with local governments in Miami. And of course, we cannot forget about social information sharing and engagement. So blockchain, of course, you think about incentives, but we have different ways. So we have platform, we have Discord, we have WhatsApp group to make sure that information is exchanged very quickly. And we also run our own engagement campaigns. So you can ask, is this model unique? So, we focus on the community interfaces, algorithms, autonomy, social information sharing, and engagement. And the answer is no. Because if you think about the blockchain projects, all of them start kind of a similar way. So people gather together, they create a community, they start talking and connecting, peer-to-peer. Algorithms and autonomy is basically peer-to-peer nature of all blockchain projects. And then when you empower them with engagement incentives and different ways to share information, you start seeing something magical happen. And part of this magic can be actually creating economies with tokens. So now you mentioned that you hold different cryptos, and we can talk a lot about what tokens are, but there is some kind of a representation. So I recently went to CES. So if you go to a casino in Vegas, you will have those poker chips. So they represent something. Before, in the old times, the currency that was used was seashells. So you could think of that as a token. And of course, Bitcoin is also a token as well. But what I would argue here is that token represents value. So first of all, it has a connotation with value. So with different poker chips in the casino, you see that they have different value. And then there is one other important aspect is acceptance. And this is actually, might sound a bit off topic, but this is where governments have an advantage because the governments have the power now to force people. If tomorrow Donald Trump decides that instead of $1, we will change the name of the currency to, seashells, there is a slight possibility that it might happen, and then the government can actually force you to transact in seashells. But if we have those tokens, we need to create value, and we need to make sure that people accept it. And this is where we come into traditional economies, because if we think about the US economy, it has a territory, it has its own language, it has its own currency, it has its own history, it has taxation system, policy, and a lot of participants that are participating in this economy, whether they want it or not. The key question here is, can you own a piece of the US economy? And that's a question to you. And if yes, then how?
S&P 500.
Can you? How many say yes? Yeah, 4, 5, 6. How many say no? Yeah, some people is indecisive, Michael. They say that it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you consider government bonds, shares, so you consider all
Yes.
that, yes, you can own part of it. That's the answer here.
So I would argue that not exactly, because when you think about the economy of the US, you think of dollar, you think of treasury bills, you think of the stock market. The point is that if the economy does very well, you don't necessarily do very well as well, even if you're part of the economy. So if you're in the US, you have no choice. You're part of the US economy. Then the question is whether the economy is doing well or not, does it have an impact on it? And of course you can say, oh, there's employment and other things. But this is the kind of old way of thinking, because now is the place where the blockchain comes in, because blockchain allows us to do things that were not possible before. So we can transact securely without a trusted third party and do it in a digital way. We can have digital items, which are one of a kind. Think of non-fungible tokens. We can create programmable money, like programmable dollar, and also programmable ownership, or agreements, and then also coordinate distributed groups and interests around the world. So I would argue again is that because of blockchain as this new exponential transformative technology, we are now creating those new economic rails and also a new way of thinking to catapult some of the things that we have now, like ecosystem and communities, to what de facto becomes emerging economies. And I would like to emphasize two things here, which is purpose-driven and emerging economies. So purpose-driven, so you don't need to create economy anymore around the territory. Again, to give an example of Fluidchains, I'm based in the UK, Cesar and Najib, they're based in Florida, and Candice based on the West Coast, and we can still work together. So we're no longer tied by a specific territory. It's just our purpose is to facilitate transformational blockchain projects, and this is what we gather about. And then also emerging economies, because this is a very new form. So again, it doesn't have to be a group of people. It might have their own currency, but it's just a very, very new way of creating and adding value. And this is what we call the EXO economy. So the goal of the EXO economy, so again, going to the purpose-driven piece, is to create positive transformation in the world. And then while we were doing that, is try to make sure that everyone that worked towards that goal can have piece of the upside, so piece of the positive transformation that we created. So you can think of that as a literal proof of work. If you contribute to work to making positive transformation that has a positive, also financial impact in the world, you should be entitled to get a piece of that. So we have our own blockchain, we have our own token, it has been running for a while. And of course, when you design a token or when you design an economy, you need to make quite a lot of different choices. So our choice was to limit the supply of the tokens and basically focus on circular services. So to give you an example, we offer specialized training and courses when it comes to EXO methodology, and you can also get those for the token. But you might not have the token, so of course you can buy the token, but you can also earn the token. So you can start engaging with the community, do some other things for the other members, you can act as an advisor, and you can earn those tokens. So then you can use them for some services. Then once you earn those tokens, you can also use them for the others. So that creates kind of like a virtuous cycle or virtuous loop. And of course, we want to put the community at the center and make sure that we capture value for the community. Because the whole EXO methodology has been around for 5 years, and based on different sources, you could say that it added hundreds million, maybe 500 million, maybe even more to the bottom line of large corporates and companies. But of course, it has not all been captured by the community. So we also want to make sure that all the people that help make transformation in the world, they are also rewarded for that. So again, what is the EXO economy? And you can define the EXO economy as the economy for transformational services. So that is our purpose. But of course, we don't want to do any kind of transformation. We want to do a transformation with a positive impact that's driven by entities. And then we go back to the US economy. So how do you measure economy? Is normally through GDP, which is gross domestic product, or gross value added, which is essentially a sum of all the value created or services delivered in a geographical territory. So if you go back to the oil spill in the Gulf a few years back, the GDP was growing because companies had to pay in order to clean up the spill. So of course it's not a perfect measure, but it just gives you a sample of how we measure traditional economies. So when you think about our EXO economy, all of the transformation or all of the EXO services that we provide that generate value can become part of our EXO economy. So this is let's say, the service part or the transaction part. But then the key question is, how do we accumulate the value? And this is usually a very tricky question because you have EXO economy, but then let's say if you buy a house in Miami, it does not fluctuate exactly as the dollar does, and it's also not impacted by inflation or government printing money, right? So there is a different form, so you can think of that form as kind of like a capital, or the way to accumulate value. And our answer to that is the EXO accelerator. So that's one of our edge or experimental projects where we get some of the companies that align with our mission, and they exchange part of their equity for the tokens that they can then use to grow their business and exchange with the community. So this is a way for us to create our mini emerging economy. So we generate value, and also we can accumulate that value. And of course, we want to combine all those things together. And important disclaimer, we have our own models, and I'm talking here about fundamentals. So we're not interested in giving you, financial advice or tax advice. And this is not about speculation. It's just trying to figure out, what do we want to do and how to measure our impact. Because when you think about it, we have this service element. We have this kind of, capital equivalent that we want to build out into our economy. But then it all comes down to the token, which is tying the community and the different aspects. So we have a stock and flow model. And what I mean by a stock and flow model is that basically each and every community member or organizations within, they have their own tokens and they can transact with others. And since I told you before, we decided consciously that we want to have a fixed supply with a very small inflation every year. We need to make sure that the token flows between the different communities. So we need to learn how to manage that. And this is very important because people tend to forget about two things that are really important for blockchain projects, which is that sometimes if you make change, it can stay there forever. And also another thought from Kent, who will be talking soon, which is that blockchain projects are very particular because every single decision you take can destroy all of the work you did before, whether that's because of a bug in the code or whether that's changing regulation or maybe some kind of strange statement. But you need to be extremely careful, and that's what we've been doing for the past few years, and that's also maybe why you haven't heard about that much. So having said that, EXO economy model, why do we want to model our project as an economy? Because then we can try to manage the economy. And of course, we don't want to control everything, but then we realize that if you look just at OpenExO, then the EXO startups that exchange part of their equity for the tokens, and we look at the community, those are those three different groups that they transact tokens between themselves. And then we realize, like, hey, we should make sure that the community holds the majority of the token because we have a proof of stake blockchain. And then also, OpenExO has some tokens, and the companies or the startups have some tokens. Can we balance it out? And the answer is yes, we can balance it out, but we need to make sure that we provide proper incentives in place so the system balances itself out. So what's next? Well, first of all, we can learn, right? So what we learned by building or studying EXOs is that there are very typical failure modes. So if you assume that the blockchain project is an EXO, a very common mode of failure that Salim talks about is that you don't get the attributes in the right order. And what is really important for blockchain projects is you should start with a purpose, so MTP, and then start building community, because a lot of blockchain projects, they start building the technology and then no one applies them. And also scaling on weak foundations is a very common mistake. And you can also think of the DAO, like the DAO hack. People got very, very excited and got a lot of traction, but the code was not there. Audits were not there, smart contracts were not there, and that created a lot of negative impact that we still feel now. And of course, don't do it alone, don't reinvent the wheel. So we have a large group of advisors, maybe Kent mentioned that, and then there are also a lot of different projects we are learning from. So for example, Prism Group when it comes to governance systems, or or the CAD project when it comes to modeling. And of course, another addition, don't forget we're very early. I'm sure that you know that we are very early, but it's essentially the internet. The blockchain is in the place where internet was more or less in 1997. And that's the time where you had no Amazon, you had no Google, you had no Facebook, you had no iPhone. So very, very different world. We are still very early, but we're growing exponentially. So this is the number of Bitcoin addresses. So we are definitely on this exponential growth trajectory. And now we also need to make sure that we have adequate impact. So this is the most important piece, is how do we create those repeatable, scalable, adaptable models to have positive impact in the world and have both global and local positive impact. So if you look at Colombia, you have another logo there, which is the Rutania project. So Kent will talk about the Exos token and the OpenExO, and Policarpo will talk about our sister economy, which is the Rutania project in Medellin. So having said that, next thing you can do, of course, you can join our community. It's open, and the same goes with our Discord channel. You can drop me or any of the Fluidchains members a line and enjoy the event.
Thank you, Michael. So we move here into questions for Michael, but before that, I forgot to introduce him. Michael is a PhD in energy from MIT, Portugal. He's been an EXO coach and consultant in the EXO network for over 3 years now, and he's been participating in the top 1,000 Fortune companies as well as cities, and he's been very involved as co-founder of Fluidchains as well in all the projects that we are doing at Fluidchains. So with that, let's open up for some questions. After that, Ken will go into more details about the EXO. But the thing I want to say now, before we do some round of questions, is that what I think is very special about EXO is that it's different to all the projects that we have seen until now. The project we have seen is the token is out, then they build the technology, and then they build the business. This project is the other way around. The business has been building since 2014. The community identified a very clear need, which is the cross-border payment for a community of 3,000 people, and then the token was created. We will learn more about it, but I just wanted to make that point because for me, that's what is different for this project to some other projects. So with that, let's open up to questions, Michael, on tokenomics and communities and exponential organizations. Who wants to go first? And good. Let me try, go ahead, but let me try here to open up the video for me.
While I was listening in, I was also kind of checking out the website and the FAQs and stuff, and I noticed that you have a history of working with a lot of other different projects. You mentioned Bitcoin Core as being kind of the starting point, but there's like NovaCoin and PPC Coin, a whole bunch of other coins mentioned. And I was curious, what from a technology perspective, and thank you for that point, that was kind of my question, about why was there a need to create a brand new coin? What was it about the technology from a technical perspective, the unique things you did in your proof of stake token that really enabled you to do stuff you couldn't do with an existing project? I think that would be fun to hear about.
Okay, so probably a better person to talk about technical details is Najib. Najib, can you raise your hand, please? He's in the room. So that's the person to talk about the technical details. I'll give you a quick answer. So the origin of the code. So it starts with Bitcoin because you could think of us as a derivative of Bitcoin or a clone. Like, we're not a fork, we're a clone, so we have our own separate blockchain. There were many discussions we had whether we should create a token, let's say, on Ethereum, or whether we should have our own. And as I mentioned before, it's a very long-term project. So relying on a different platform with different technical limitations would not be a wise choice for us, because we keep on learning and experimenting all the time. So we still have a lot of flexibility, let's say adjusting fees or updating our protocol. We don't need to worry that much about smart contracts underlying our token just going bad. So those are some of the choices we had to make, and that's why we decided to do our own blockchain. Now, when it comes to technical capabilities, we're actually now getting close to a major update, which will include master nodes, smart contracts, like a new iteration, and also capability to have side chains as well as cold stake. I mean, this is a very major update, so it might still take quite some time, but that will allow us to interconnect with different projects and also, do a bit more interesting automation when it comes to interacting with the community and the different projects. But again, the person you want to talk with is Najib. Okay?
Do you want to add something, Najib, or you will do it after Ken? Yeah, we will do it after Ken. In the next presentation, we will go into more details, and then if no, we can come back to the question. Great, thank you. So you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there any timeline for the EXO token to be listed on its first exchange, or any way for us to get access to the token beforehand? Is there any plans for that?
You can get access to the token, not a problem. I mean, like, you can buy the token. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that. It really depends where you're from, but you can definitely earn the token. And again, the person who might tell you more about that is Ken, who will be presenting next. But overall, the network is open. We have a public blockchain. We have a block explorer. We have a community. We're not restricting the access in a specific way. We don't have a timeline for listing, but that's purely because of regulatory reasons. I mean, we took a very long and cautious pathway when it comes to launching the project. So unfortunately, I can't give the answer. But is the token accessible? Yes, it is. But again, I can't give the details. I'll leave that to Ken. Okay?
Yeah, Ken will go into more details. I only want to say two things. We as EXO coaches and consultants, we can go into the marketplace. We can post opportunities and pay those opportunities in EXOs to the members of the community, or we as coaches and consultants can go also and apply for those opportunities and be paid with EXOs. So it's there. That's the normal way how you got access to the token during the past year. Saying that, in November, we open up a friends and family round where, and Ken will talk more about it, people from the community can go and buy tokens without discount. But Ken will go into more details. But at this point, these are the two major ways how this is working. Yes.
Yeah, this is Kent. I'll talk about those things some more. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Ken. So any other questions? If your questions are more on the EXO, we can wait until Ken explains. If you want to talk more about tokenization and innovation, this is the right time for Michael to answer. We have two. Let me go here to the back first, and then I can back. Yeah, thank you.
I'll go through the platform as well.
Okay.
I don't have to do it now.
Yeah, I just wanted to show an example of opportunity where we were working on Rutanio and EXO's bridge, and we wanted to interview the community members. So that was one example of an opportunity where you could earn EXOs, and there are many others, and we'll talk about that.
Okay, my name is Carol Van Cleef, and I just want to clarify what I think I heard with respect to the tokens, so that I think everybody has an appropriate understanding. It sounds as if you're involved in a project, you can be rewarded or paid with the tokens. And if you're looking at family and friends, but are you looking at family and friends in the US, or are you looking at family and friends outside the US? Are you doing a Reg D, a Reg S type of offering to be compliant? I mean, we've got people here that are US residents, and we need to make sure, if they're picking up tokens, whether it's through work or through a family and friends, if they can get their hands on it, can they actually sell it in the marketplace?
Again, I will leave the details to Ken, but hearing the conversation about Reg S and Reg D, that would clearly make us a security with all the restrictions with regards to token flow. And again, by design, if we cannot make the token transactable easily between the members, we're not going to succeed. So we took the pathway of very carefully threading towards utility token and starting with utility use cases, and also, organizing the structure in a specific way. But I will leave the details to Ken.
Yeah, I think your question was related to my comment.
Somebody write that question down, please, so I can address it. directly in a bit. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And regarding my comment, I just want to clarify that the Friends and Family program is not available in the US. So I didn't say that, and I should have said that in my previous comment. So thank you for your question. So any additional question for Michael? One here, you know.
Hello, Michael. You said that there's going to be a large update coming through. Is that switching from a proof of work to a proof of stake change?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, we had the proof of stake activated from block 40,000, which should be, I think, June 2018. And we're running proof of stake 3.0. We have a small technical overview paper. And again, you can ask Magic for the details. So we're proof of stake from the very beginning. The large update I'm talking about is a major update to full nodes, which will enable a lot of those capabilities that I told you about, which is master nodes, cold staking, side chains, and things like that.
And thank you.
Because that requires a massive overhaul of the existing architecture. That's why I'm calling that a major update.
I understand. Yeah, that would, and that does. The change in 2018, or the origination 2018, did you experience any speed increase in hash rate over the last year? Have you changed the hash rate effect?
Again, we don't really require hash rate. It's more about the community staking. Now, we're still working on distribution, so we have large pool of tokens that are locked up. So we don't have full distribution yet. But I would say that the staking has been fairly stable. But of course, we are not where we want to be yet. There's always this issue of people participating, and it's not as high as we would like to, but we would say it's between 10 to 25% of the community who are staking actively. So again, it's not about hash rate, it's about staking rate.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I see a lot of questions going into the EXO token itself. So I would like to invite now Ken Lanley. Ken is a Chief Scientific Officer of OpenExO. He's also co-founder from Fluidchains. He is a faculty at Singularity University. He is a speaker and also an author, and he will be going into details into the EXO token. So it's all yours, Ken.
Okay. So most of this one, you're just going to be looking at me. I didn't prepare a lot of slides because I thought it would be nice just to have a good conversation. Now I am going to do some live demos, and when I do those demos, it's going to be like this. So just to give you kind of a little preview of what's going to happen during the talk, you'll see me shrink down a little bit. In fact, I'll even make myself a little bit smaller so that I'm out of the way. And this, for example, is the Block Explorer. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, and we'll talk about the different bits and pieces that make up the EXO economy and the network. But before we get into that, the thing I want to do more is talk about why we did all this. Because a lot of times people do ask me all kinds of very specific questions. What type of consensus algorithm you have? How is the community involved? What types of blockchain is it? Why are you public, permissionless, standalone, on Ethereum? I mean, is it a private blockchain? We get every variant that you can imagine. And then lots and lots of questions about taxes and regulations. So I can touch on some of that as well. And like I said, capturing those questions from before, we'll come back to that. But the most important thing, I think, that's driving a lot of this need for change, and the reason we would even bother to employ exponential technologies like crypto and currency and blockchain to create something like the EXO economy. And by the way, the EXO economy does have a sister economy that's now spun up in Medellin, Colombia, called Ruta. The name of the project overall is called Rutaño. Cesar can give you lots of information about that. These are two currencies that are kind of joined at the hip, if you will, that are built in similar fashions to tokenize underlying innovation ecosystems. Because what we've got going on right now is that more than every single day, and more every day than in every time in human history, we've got more people connected. So the degree of human connectivity, we're talking about 5.5 billion people or so, are now connected to each other. And the pace of change of exponential technologies is accelerating on a daily basis. So when you see that degree of person-to-person, peer-to-peer, connectivity, things are going to change. And we're not only getting started. We know another 2 billion are going to come online probably in the next 5 to 7 years. So I don't think there's anything less at stake in the future of how society operates. And I don't think that it's without substantial risks. And most of the risks that we're going to experience are going to be in the form of these things we think about as immune system responses. You got an overview of the EXO model from Mihal, and the immune system response is that response you get in the face of change. It can be positive or it can be negative. You need an immune system to have a healthy body. Well, but if it starts attacking everything that comes in the door, then you have an autoimmune disease, and that's just as bad as not having an immune system at all, in fact. So some of the risks that we're facing, even though all these people are coming online, is more and more and more walled gardens. So if you look at what's going on with the segregation of the internet in places like India and China and a number of other places around the world, I'm not here to judge whether these things are good, bad, or otherwise, but I do know that it's in a time when we are actually able to finally speak to one another with artificial intelligence that can translate my speech in real time. I'm being told I can't talk to people because they're on a different internet or they're behind a paywall or what have you. And I think that's kind of unbelievable. If you look at how we progress in some areas, but then we seem to regress in other areas at the same time. That if you go back, and thinking about Bitcoin came on the scene about 11 years ago, and it was really truly probably one of the world's first scarce digital assets. There was pre-work before Bitcoin, of course, but it's the first one that got truly big and garnered global attention. And I think that as the world's first scarce digital asset, it really has set the mold on a lot of things that have come after, no matter what your crypto politics may be. That's kind of undeniable. And what I wanted to know, sitting around a few years ago, I was talking with one of our co-founders at OpenExO, Celine, and we were talking about cryptocurrency, and it was right about 2016, so we hadn't experienced the ICO craze just yet. When we were starting to have this conversation, we wanted to know, well, how might we employ cryptocurrency in our network of humans? Because you see, we already were building an increasingly powerful and impressive network of people that were able to implement exponential technologies for organizational and civic transformational change. So how might we mix crypto into that? That was kind of the big question. And we were talking back then about something I was calling the OpenExO protocol. That was meant to be a means of communications just for people to communicate about the things that are EXO between one another so they could exchange thoughts, exchange ideas. But what we began to think was, well, what if we were to create our own scarce digital asset? The original name of it was actually CivX. It's currently called Exos. It's been the same token, we just changed the name along the way. So could we use a digital token, Exos, as a proxy to the underlying capabilities of the individuals in the network that were already connected together, and have that token be tradable amongst those people at the very least? We could talk about public listings and things like that, and going public in a bit. But I just really wanted to know if that was possible. And so we decided to do the experiment. We decided in 2016, you fast forward a little bit, there was a lot of back and forth, and should we launch on this chain or that chain or build our own chain? What ancestor of the technology do we want to build on? Do we want proof of work or proof of stake? And as you've heard, we chose proof of stake. We chose a Bitcoin ancestor that went basically from Bitcoin to, I'll probably on the about page for the wallets, but it's like Bitcoin, PBCoin, Blackcoin, Stratus, and then Exos. And so what you see there is that around the time of Blackcoin, PBCoin, somewhere in there is where they inserted or replaced consensus algorithms from proof of work to proof of stake. And this was this is back to one of the questions that was just asked. This was a critical component for us because we wanted the network itself to be able to be effectively the data center and own the means of production of the token over time. beyond the initial genesis. And so I'll show you what that looks like today. This is the global heat map. This is a live view of the global heat map. And I'm actually going back in time because I want to show you sort of the spread around the world. So what you're seeing here, the hotspots are people with the wallet, the full mode, which is a QT-based wallet, on their laptop, traveling. These people travel. They go all over the world because they're global consultants, the majority of them. And everywhere you see this lighting up is somewhere that exos are being staked at a given point in time. And when they win that sort of block award, they get 1 exos and they get to extend the blockchain by 1 block. And then we bring that up and we put it here on the block explorer. So you can see this is just the last few blocks. I haven't chosen anything in particular. And you can, zoom in and dig into each transactions and see what the UTXO is and everything else. The point though here is that it's a public permissionless proof of stake blockchain that is managed and owned effectively by its own community. That community is the group of just shy of 3,100 people. And as you can see here, they're spread all over the world. So I'm starting, and then what's particularly exciting is what are they doing with it, right? Because everybody talks about the use cases or the cases for crypto. Well, in our case, just like Cesar said, we weren't a token looking for a use case. We were a use case looking for a token and whether it could solve problems that we had. For example, paying one another simply when you have over 3,000 people in it's over 102 countries now speaking over 60 languages. How are you going to do that? Well, if you have exos and a crypto wallet on your laptop or computer, then you can do that quite easily just by sending them to one another. If you agree, it has value. And so what we've done, and you saw a screenshot of this from Michael, was we have a marketplace. And this marketplace has been live now for some time. It came online after the token, but it's been, I don't know exactly how long the marketplace has been live. But I just want to show you just a quick example of what's going on and how the token is being used, for example. So here is this is a opportunity that was posted in the marketplace for somebody who was an expert on algorithms, artificial intelligence, and machine learning for an outsourcer contact center. And in this particular case, they were offering to pay for half an hour of your time, $100 and 200 exos. Now, I happen to know, because I'm involved, this is a special opportunity by someone who's in training. So Arturo here was in the EXO coach certification training, and this was one of his real clients, and so he's posting a real opportunity, but the student posts are, we dictate how much they can charge for those, and we actually make it lower than the typical totally fine too. Maybe you happen to be European and you'd like to pay in euros, or you might actually, and this happens more often than not, you might want to do some sort of a hybrid where you're paying, say, $1,000 US dollars and 1,000 euros for whatever the job to do is. And if you want to pre-screen them, you can do that here. Now, there's a lot of other details that go into creating these opportunities. Once you do that, it goes live in the marketplace, and then people apply. The way that looks when people apply is what Mihao was just about to show you. So I'll show you one that's managed by me. Going over here, I needed to hire a coach for an online course I teach, kind of an assistant coach, if you like. And so I created this opportunity on the marketplace where I was willing to pay, in this case, it was between $1,000 and $1,500, $500 per cohort that you manage, and an equivalent amount of exos. I actually posted this before at exos as a currency in the system, so it doesn't show up there. It's down here at the bottom. Now, when I did this, I got applications from, if I remember, 18 people, and I ended up selecting 3. eventually as the course grew. I think I had 102 students in that course, and I ended up hiring one assistant coach for 30 students, and each assistant coach ran 3 masterminds for me in the evenings, and I taught the course in the daytime. So this is just an example where I used exos and dollars, posted it in the marketplace, received applications, processed the applications, hired the help, ran the course. It was a 12-week course online, similar to the way I'm presenting right now. And I used our platform here to do that. And most importantly, I think for this conversation, I used exos. So when I said, you know, one of the things that I wanted to know was, well, could I use a token in a marketplace to proxy for the underlying capability that exists within a human network, that human network being the OpenExO community? Well, it turns out the answer is yes. You can do that as long as everybody in the community is willing to trade in the token. That's a private market, and that's fine. So this is something that we think is pretty unique about the EXO economy and the Exos token. And then it's been about 3 years now since we started doing all this. And I've come to believe, I had an opportunity, gosh, I guess it was, I want to remember, I want to say it was like last October. I got to go to New York and speak at the United Nations at a special event. And the thing that I talked about there was how we might be able to utilize cryptocurrencies to create a global digital commons. And this is a really interesting concept because, you know, Wikipedia defines commons as cultural and natural resources accessible to all members of society. Well, the society I'm focused on in this case is the EXO community. So it's a small society, but it's a society nonetheless. And I'm trying to figure out, and I'm still on this journey, and I'm sharing that here. I think that the cryptocurrency itself, not the blockchain, that's the ledger of it, but the cryptocurrency itself is actually a form of digital commons. And I think that, you know, that heat map I showed you shows you the distribution of staking ownership of that commons by the community members themselves. Now, the real distribution of exos is substantially beyond the staking volume. What Mihal said was we see a little, gosh, I'm gonna quote me on this, is a little over 10% of the distributed volume of tokens is staking at any given time. And we know that with the release of the next wallet iteration, which combines staking and heuristic deterministic capabilities, we know we're gonna see that number go way, way up because it's just gonna be a lot easier. It's just hard for some people to use the first gen technologies like Qt and running their own full node. But the core UI wallet that we're going to be releasing soon is going to make that a lot easier. So we expect to see that number go up. And to the person who asked all the questions about the hash rate, well, our proxy for hash rate is staking volume. And yes, we've seen a steady growth in staking volume as the network has grown over time, which is good. You certainly want to see that go the other way. And so then you have to start, with all that, you have to start asking yourself questions. You know, should we do this? I mean, you know, should we aspire to create a global digital commons? Should we connect people in this way with means of exchange that's money? It is money, but one that they can govern and own. I liked that question Mihal was asking, you know, can you own a piece of the US economy? Not directly, but you can certainly by proxy through bonds and treasury bills and things like that. But I think that in this case, you could directly own a chunk of the EXO economy, and that's pretty exciting. And I think that if we get this right, then the community owning pieces of the economy on behalf of the community and then using it as a means of exchange for transformation services or consulting services, if you prefer, should lead to a substantial increase in the overall welfare of all parties and probably their overall value or valuation or wealth, whatever, however you want to think about that. And if you do that with a digital commons or a digital cryptocurrency in this case, the borders start to disappear. Brand new possibilities arise. It gets pretty exciting. And now, what I can't give anybody is the ability to not heal to their tax regime. So one of the more fun things we have to deal with in the endeavor to launch a utility token in this fashion over this amount of time is, how do I deal with taxes if I'm the person receiving the tokens? Well, it's generally subject to your local regulatory body. So if you're in the US, it's a certain thing. If you're in Europe, it's a certain thing. And as I said, we've got people in over 100 countries, so I've seen some interesting questions and fear. A lot of people are just have a lot of fear when it comes to taxes, and this hinders adoption. And it's something that we have to deal with and acknowledge. So, you know, I think for me, you know, I kind of have my own concept of a massive transformative purpose. I've been working with technology since I was a little kid, and I really just try to use technologies, and these days what we call exponential technologies, to empower people, to empower organizations, empower cities in some case. And I don't think I have a bigger sort of tool than blockchain and the crypto that goes along with it, and all the underlying things that are going to be possible as we bring sidechain smart contracts and master nodes online. There's so many possibilities that's opening up. The things that we're running into that slow us down are almost all regulatory. The question about US citizens versus other citizens. We actually moved. We started out in Delaware. We moved our global seat of token operations from Delaware to Singapore. So there's an organization called OpenExO Singapore that handles all global token work. The reason we did that was because it afforded us more flexibility and capability. It's effectively regulatory arbitrage, I guess. But even doing that, we still can't direct sell tokens to US citizens. It's really frustrating. But we're tracking carefully what they call the Henman factors these days, and a number of related things. And we've seen a lot of actions by the SEC with different tokens. So we're watching really, really closely, really carefully on whether or not we've done enough, right, to be considered effectively a currency, and therefore not necessarily subject to any potential trade restrictions. To the question about Reg A clause, Reg D, Reg S, none of that. Not necessary in our case. We have just excluded distribution of and sale of tokens from places where that come into play. That does not obviate anybody in the world, though, from working on the platform and earning tokens, which is great. You're getting paid in something that's not a dollar or a euro. It's just a different transaction. So one of the things we actually need to move faster is way more regulatory clarity. You know, this is a Bitcoin conference. I'm not there. I wish I could be. But the reality is, like, what the hell's going on? You know, I mean, what are we actually going to do, especially as the United States? I'd sure like to know, because we're falling behind, right, in the States really quickly. And I think that, you know, many other places in the world are stepping up. We already have the world's first digitized fiat currency. It happened already, the petrol. I'm not so sure if this is a good or a bad thing that it happened in Venezuela with petrol with Maduro, but then the next one, it looks like, is probably going to be in China. They're moving very, very quickly. Here we are twiddling our thumbs. Super, super frustrating. But, you know, there are people working really hard, like Caitlin Long and others, to push ahead regulatory processes and change in states like Wyoming and a few others that are doing good. And then you look at other places in the US, and it's really not good. I happen to live in California. Haven't been too proud of what's going on here. But day by day, you know, what we're just trying to do is keep our heads down, work really hard, grow the community, provide as much value as possible, and focus. What are we focused on? We're focused on distribution, utility, and increasing liquidity over time. I break liquidity down into two pieces, though. One is what I think of as service liquidity, and that's what you saw. I demonstrated that. You can take the tokens, put them in the marketplace, give back a service that's valuable for you, or your organization, or your city. That's liquidity of a form. It's not the kind of liquidity most people are talking about, though. They want to be able to take the token and exchange it for a Bitcoin or a dollar or a euro or something else. That type of liquidity requires listing in public marketplaces, and that is something that we will do. We don't know exactly when we will do it. We will do it when the time is right. And right now, we're just trying to continue to grow the marketplace and the ownership. What Cesar alluded to is the fact that you can now, for the first time as of last November, acquire tokens for use in your business in the marketplace for its intended utility purpose. And that is one of the ways, that is one of the things that we have to do in order to stay kind of the way we are right now, continue to increase distribution. So, you know, I think as an overall moving forward, we've been focused for a few years on utility, distribution, and liquidity. And now what we're moving forward is to focusing on governance. We're trying to find all the right ways, and Masternodes can be a part of this when it's live, to get the community involved in the overall governance, care, and feeding of the network. That's actually one of the key factors of the tests that are necessary to make sure you're distributed enough, is how much of it is managed by your community, your source code, your feature dev, your tokens themselves, treasuries, all these things are managed by the community. And I think as soon as we get to that, which isn't particularly far off, I think we'll be able to take the shackles off to a degree, and I'm excited about that. So I'm hoping to give all of the members of the EXO community and people affiliated with it these new economic powers. And Najib is sending me some questions here. Yes, Najib, we'll get to that. And really put blockchain to work, right? Really as a distributed ledger of change, right? And really put crypto to work, specifically to help the people who need to be economically empowered make the change they seek. Do good things, drive impact. That's really why we made this thing in the first place. And that's probably why it's working. And then, as Cesar said, we have a very long view on this project. If anybody asks me, I'm on roughly quarter 8 or 9 out of 100. And then someone only got 10% of the way through what I considered the original scope. But hey, it's still pretty exciting day to day. And we really, really are trying to transform the world for a better future. So I hope this has been interesting overall, and I'm really looking forward to answering any questions you might have that the law will allow. And I see a couple of questions coming up in the chat. So that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. So now we will move into the Q&A. And I see one hand at the back already, so let's start here. Can you see us here, Ken, at the back?
I see. What do I see? I see.
Can you see
when I
me?
look at the room, I see somebody waving. Yes, kind of blurry. Hi.
Hi there. So I am a little confused in what you're talking about in terms of liquidity with respect to the token. Are you looking to have it be a utility token or a currency?
A utility token or a currency?
Or a currency. What is your...
Is that the, are
right,
those?
right. So what is your preference in that regard?
I want to make sure I heard your question right. Am I looking for it to be a utility token or a currency? What is my preference?
Right.
Well, it's both. Part of the utility is the underlying capability of the community members in the ecosystem, which are willing to accept the currency as a means of exchange for transformation and consulting services.
Okay, so
So it's more like a currency than anything else, but it's a currency with underlying utility. The dollar has the utility of the United States. This has the utility of the capabilities of the network.
Okay, because there are different regulatory implications of whether it's a utility token or a currency, and the tradability of it is also going to be affected by that. Because the SEC, at least in the United States, has made it clear that utility tokens are not intended to be fully exchangeable over some type of an exchange platform.
Yeah, there's really, this is what I mean when we need better regulatory guidance. I would welcome that. But it doesn't really exist. The only place you can go to get good regulatory guidance at the moment is Wyoming, but that only operates and works for you in Wyoming.
I disagree with you. I think we've got a lot of clarity from the SEC on what the expectations are, but it does mean, especially for folks who have fledgling projects, that does mean having to spend money to consult with experienced securities counsel. But we do have a lot of experience, and the rules are a lot clearer than it seems. And I don't think that what's happened in Wyoming is necessarily the beginning and the end of that kind of clarity. So just food for thought.
Okay. Sure. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Any additional question, comment? Everybody's clear? Anything you want to add, Ken?
No, that's what I came here to say today. I really appreciate everybody's time and attention. We've been at this a while. We're going to be at it a good while longer. And if you're interested in it at all, it's super easy. Just go. Somebody was asking about which places can participate and which places can't. If you look here on the, let me find this for you. Here on this website called economy.openexo.com, there's a section called FAQ, and in the FAQ, somewhere down here is a list of countries. These are the places that can't buy it. And again, I'm not soliciting anyone to buy these tokens. This is just where in the world we're just not allowed to sell them. And to the point about Securities Council, we agree, and we've had and do have some of the best around. So it's been good.
Good. Earlier we say we will come back to one of your questions. I think that was your question. So did you solve your doubt, or do you still want to?
I think you've answered it.
Okay.
As far as explaining the history of it, why you created a new chain, why you wanted flexibility with your own community, do your own thing. Makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll only add to that. Thank you for bringing that one back up. Is that the proof of stake algorithm allows us to distribute the sort of the means of over long-term production and management of the network to the community itself. And I think that's critical. And there wasn't really a lot of other choices that had the same capabilities at the time that we launched as what we chose. Remember, we're talking about August 2016 was when we were really looking at this. And so, for me, if you start to look at look future forward, where it's community governed, community centered, community first, everything, you can imagine almost a more cooperative business structure overlaid on top of that proof of stake structure and governance.
I had a follow-up question related to the graphs we saw earlier, the amount that was owned by the community fund account, basically, and wanting to kind of get it distributed out to the community. Was there, pre-mine is kind of a wrong word maybe, but did you all go through the same staking reward process to gain, as a central entity, gain those tokens, or was there initial distribution to your team for developing the software and moving forward, and that's that amount that you steward right now?
Yeah, so there's a document called the business overview that goes into the different tiering that we set out at the very beginning. And I don't have it memorized right this second, but for example, 10% was reserved back for the teams that created the entirety of everything. But that wasn't distributed. That was put on a long-term vesting program. And so, for example, you have to stay engaged and stay working to receive any share of that, and we've continued over the course of the project, and we didn't start vesting until the mainnet was live. So that was April 2018. So we haven't been even doing that for very long. And then the 90% of the tokens are earmarked in 5 other tiers for different things. We did hold back 10% of that for what we originally called the foundation, and that is meant to be used, really, frankly, maybe never to be used. But it's meant to sit there and be a part of the underlying assets of the founding organization, which is a public benefit corporation out of Delaware at this time. And then the rest is divvied up in a variety of ways, but the vast majority of it is intended to be distributed to people who are going to use it, preferably in the marketplace, to leverage the capabilities of the people that are in there. So I hope that makes sense, and I'm more than happy to share those details. They're public, so you just have to know where to go find it.
And what I will add on that point is that the commitment from Salim and from the core team is that this is really a distributed network that is owned by the people making the transformation in the world. And he's very committed to that, and one of the key KPI, I will say, that everybody uses is that no one in the network has more than 2%, so it's really a very distributed network from that perspective. So
yeah, in a proof of stake network, you have to always keep an eye out for making sure no one can do an attack, right? Who can get control of the majority of the tokens. And so we've been very, very careful about how the tokens go out and flow. And it's better to go slow, just to be honest. It's not better for your pocketbook, frankly, but it's better to go slow for the community, and that's what we care about when we do it. We didn't participate at all, for example, in any of the ICO stuff. I mean, it didn't make any sense from our point of view. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, right? You know, but at the end of the day, that's just not how we went about it. It was bootstrapped, self-run.
Great. Thank you, Ken. Now, you know, we've been almost 2 hours here, so it's good to have a break. Please feel free to get some water, some of the snacks. We come back for the second part. It will be all here with people alive. No more distributed networks. It's going to be here. So Policarpo is going to be talking about Rutanio, the use case of Rutanio. And then after that, Robin will be leading the panel to make sure that all our questions and all our take-home value is really taken. So with that, feel free to get your coffee, waters, a snack, and then we go ahead. Jorge, you want to say something?
Just quickly, we have also here Hispanos, founder of the Bitcoin Center New York City, for those folks who came and are consultants and are part of the EXO organization. He's one of the partners here as well, so just wanted to say hi. And if you guys want to catch up with him about more about Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies, well, he's part of it and part of the Miami Blockchain Center and putting a lot of faith here with us in Miami. So just for you guys to be aware.
Thanks for coming by. I'm here if anyone has any questions.
Very good. Thank you. So with that, let's get a quick break, and then Polly can set up your presentation, and then we continue.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Michał. Now we are going to be talking about a token for a city, the city of Medellin. And for that, we have Policarpo Guerrero. It's local here in South Florida. He's been working many years in the mobile app industry, and he's a veteran, I would say, also in the blockchain and Bitcoin space. Actually, myself, I was introduced back in 2013 into this world via Poly. So for me, it's an honor presenting him. And he's been doing a lot of work with different projects in crypto marketing. And he will be presenting today everything about the token of the city of Medellin. So welcome, Poly. All yours.
Thank you. Hello, guys. Thank you for being here, for staying. And I hope you like what we're showing today. So as Cesar said, my name is Policarpo. I've been involved in cryptocurrencies since 2013 in different projects, from Open Bazaar to a lot of cryptocurrencies that came 2014, 2015. Eventually, I joined the team of a Stratis platform in 2016. I worked 2 years for them. It was the most successful ICO to date in numbers, from the amounts of money raised to the actual market cap that we achieved during my tenure there. So we got a lot of experience in business development, marketing, creating communities. And we're bringing that experience to Fluidchains, of which I'm a founder, and also to the projects that we're helping build and the economies we're helping build with the help of Fluidchains, including the EXO project and the one we're presenting today, which is Rutanio, that we define as a platform token for the creative economy in the city of Medellin. So that's me. And the history, why we're doing this in Medellin, well, you heard a lot of the reasons why we should explore other markets rather than the United States. Regulations in many of our countries are more flexible. You can experiment, you can get participation of different government entities and different players that are key for the development of this type of projects. And the reason why we came to Medellin, Colombia, well, first of all, my partner Cesar, Najib are from there. I am from Venezuela originally, but for me it's a pleasure to be working there and making this happen. They have a lot of connections with the local technology markets and the community there, including key communities like Ruta N and several other entities involved in the development of technology in Colombia. Medellin was considered one of the most violent cities a few decades ago, and it's been surprising the change it has gone through in terms of moving away from this past of violence and an economy based on crime, and the production of agricultural items, not necessarily coffee. And that created a lot of let's say, problems and bad report for the city, right? So in the last years, we have seen things like Medellin becoming the hub of technology, not only in Colombia, but also in Latin America as a whole. Medellin has been named one of the cities that is part of the system of the fourth industrial revolution. There are 5 centers in the world that host this type of initiative. 4 of them are in developed countries. The only one in a country in a developing country is in Medellin, Colombia. And this implies a big effort towards the development of technologies like artificial intelligence, AR, Internet of Things, and obviously blockchain. All these initiatives have a lot of support by the government. There are investments, there are changes in legislation, there are lots of initiatives at the highest level in the country to make these type of things happen, and they are happening. Medellin is becoming the smartest city in Latin America, has companies like Accenture investing there, and overall is dramatically changing. The innovation ecosystem that we envision in Medellin is the product of this effort then of transforming the economy from a new perspective, giving and empowering the communities to have access to new technologies and new capabilities. We are together helping democratize, open these systems and the participation of more actors into this type of ecosystems. And they are investing, as I said, real money in creating centers and in capacitation and preparing the people for this revolution. The other big aspect that plays a big role on this is that what we call in Colombia the economía naranja, which is the economic platform of the government of Colombia, and it includes all the creative economic powers of arts, education, development, technology, movies, production, anything that can be digitized and delivered can be considered part of this orange economy. Again, is as big as any other area of the economy in a developing country, like energy or whatever other sector. So this is a very powerful driver, and as we say, it's an economy based on creating wealth through talent, connectivity, and cultural heritage. What we do as Fluid is to provide the connectivity. We are precisely creating the platform and the capabilities for these people of this orange economy to gain access to the international markets, to be able to sell their talents, and also for international companies to go and look for those services and those talents in Medellin, Colombia, in an effective way, okay? So that's about the orange economy. As I was saying, this generates almost 3.4% of the GDP in the country, and definitely it's going to be very, very stable as a platform to support the development of these initiatives. Tapping into this opportunity, we then went to close an agreement with the major innovation center of the city of Medellin, by extension of Colombia, which is Ruta N. Ruta N is a center for the innovation. It's a center which is funded by the government of Medellin, the Alcaldía of Medellin, private sector, educational organizations, and private companies. In 2018, we signed this agreement with the Ruta N organization to create the Blockchain Research and Development Center in the city of Medellin. And our first product, our first MVP, was the Rutanio token and platform, which is what we're presenting today. In 2019, we launched the platform and the token, so it is already operative. And we have already partners and ambassadors using the platform, trading and offering their services with the help of the Rutanio network. For this year, 2020, we are planning to work more on community onboarding and help develop the marketplace for these new players. and also to start creating what we call the Rutanio Accelerator, which is an investment vehicle into the initiatives that we see are going to be of value for this economic experiment. By the end of this year, we hope to have already established a minimum viable economy. And then from here, our vision, our holy grail is to move into city services. So again, having this support from the government open realistically those possibilities for us. And the idea is that when they see value and that this works and there are enough people enrolled into this platform, then we will open the possibility of acquiring or paying for city services using the Rutanio token, hopefully. Just to define what is Rutanio, Rutanio, as I said, is a blockchain platform and a token, which are built on a clone of Bitcoin, from the technical point of view. The difference is that instead of proof of work, it's proof of stake. And the idea is to provide these tools to the economic players in this system to have the ability of transact with minimum cost without having to go through all the banking and all the billing processes and all those things that are really very onerous and make the offer of your services internationally probably not so attractive once you have to deal with all those. So we are trying to simplify that, connecting with the existing economies that we have already in place, like the EXO economy, other communities that we are working with. So we provide our people access to that economy and to this other group of consultants and professionals the possibility also of selling their services in Medellin, again for Rutanios, using the Rutanio token. So we are offering this capability to have access to resources in a simple way, okay? And the problems that we are solving, as I said, are first of all, providing access to a variety of markets internationally, showcasing the talents of these developers, of these technical specialists from Medellin to the world, telling people that they exist, that they are good, that they know what they're doing, making it affordable for them to participate, and at the same time, something that is very important, especially for the creative type, we are including elements of protection of their the intellectual rights. Because again, in many of these instances, you create and you only get paid once, but then you cannot monetize further down the road after you have given away the product of your creation. So, and this is also a very critical aspect as a policy for the government and for this whole movement that we want. Yes, we want to sell our services, we want to sell our talents, but we also want to have protections and we want to maximize revenue as we move forward. And then again, all these elements that I just mentioned are essential elements for the success of the creative economy as we know it. So how are we dealing with this challenge? We are using the same process that was described before by the EXO economy, so we are applying the same transformational purposes, and we are pursuing the same ideal of transforming for a better world. Exactly the same. We're just repeating the same process, using the same talents and the consulting capabilities that the EXO organization offers for this purpose. And here are some of the participants in the network today, and many of which were in the process of signing. securing the different agreements. As I said, we started with Ruta N, and Ruta N is a center, first of all, a center of innovation where companies come to receive support and guidance to move to the next stage, to learn how to export, learn how to organize themselves. You know, it works as an incubator of sorts for the companies in Medellin. But at the same time, it also works as a hub for developers. So we have developer communities like the Python community, Node.js, C#.NET communities. So those are our first tier of contact, people that is already familiar with the technology. Then we have other companies that are part of the system that are also tapping into this economic potential. And we have startups and a lot of other players, including ambassadors in different countries and in different organizations like universities, et cetera, et cetera. So we already have a few. This year, we hopefully will have a lot more, but we already are, first of all, noticing the interest. People want to do this. People want to accept our token to provide services for us, and we are more than happy to pay for services also from this first initial roster of participants, but we are going to have more down the road. This is another example similar to what Kent showed that Exos is doing as a marketplace for their consultants. We are creating the same model for opportunities in Latin America within the Rutanio network. So then again, we can look for any type of service that we want to obtain there. We can use services from translators, we can use services from programmers, we can use services from copywriters, whatever. So the talents is there, designers, marketing agencies doing branding. So there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of companies, and we are already starting to build this first iteration of the marketplace for them. And a quick fact sheet about Rutanio, the token itself. As I said, the token is originated in Colombia. It's an operation headquartered in Colombia, Medellin. The premise is this is a platform, a token for the creative economy. And the idea is to use this token for payments in the first instance, for settlements. But eventually we're going to have smart contracts, you know, everything that we can do as programmable money, and provide services that require registration on the blockchain, like certificates, time-stamped documents, etc. From the technical point of view, as I said, it's a clone of Bitcoin on proof of stake, and the way how you can obtain Rutanio today is by either providing services to the members of the network or be the recipient of one of our airdrops that are happening at different stages during the year. I think that's the most important information there. So to finalize, what are we offering? What are we doing different? Is first of all, beyond the technical capability that we as Fluid are bringing into this project, we are also, and I think it's the most important part, helping build this consortium of participants, trying to match the offer of services with the demand, either locally or internationally. We want also to showcase interesting projects and utilize these capabilities to help with funding, and to accelerate the projects that have the most potential. And also we want to be able to simplify the participation of the different actors by eliminating the intermediaries. So we want this to work as a peer-to-peer type of organization initially for the transactions, with a minimum control from a centralized entity. And but that's down the road. Once we have already signed enough participants and they know what to do, what to expect, and how to operate within this system. So as I said, what we are looking as the team in Rutanio is to accelerate and connect the local innovation ecosystem internationally and with the rest of the world. So that's pretty much what we are doing at Rutanio. These are the resources that you can check, the web page, the GitHub, and we have a lot of interactions via our Discord channel, and there you can ask questions and look for us and propose any ideas you want us to consider. And with that, I think that's all I have for Rutanio today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
So is any questions for Rutanio and for Poli? Jorge.
What's the timeline? What is the process that you guys are on right now? What do you see next?
What
do you see next? Perhaps the rest of the year, or what are you guys?
Yeah, well, as I said, we already have a working platform. We already have a working wallet, and the whole system is already tested, and we are confident that it can be open for more participants to start transacting. So at this point, what we're doing is signing and boosting the community. So the list that I showed you before, this, pardon. Where is it? This list of participants, we are working on each of these groups with several at a time, and signing them and making sure that they, first of all, see the utility. Second, that they understand the implications, because this is not easy. This requires capacitation, training, understanding, legal support, a lot of things. So that's where we are. We are signing, getting them to know how it works, and getting them to be known.
So this is more like stakeholders, right?
Yeah. There's participants, active participants in the network. Mm-hmm.
And then the usage, on the usage side, will be the participants on the creative economy.
Correct. So at the beginning, what was, for example, you are a developer in a Python community. So, okay, you're working in Colombia and you are doing your thing, you're being paid in pesos, all is good. You want to sell, I need Python development services. I have two options. I can contract you and go through a bank payment, or send you Bitcoin or whatever for a service that you provide for me, or I can get you into the Rutanio network, where we can obtain the services and you get paid using Rutanio. So that's the first stage. Second stage, we will have all the possibilities that programmable money provides, meaning we can have smart contracts, so specifically for uses that you will define along the way, and also different possibilities of accessing funding, for example, crowdsourcing, and things like that that we can do with the help of a token. Okay?
Great presentation.
Thank
I
you.
had a question about the transactions. What is the transactions per second kind of limit that you guys have? And I kind of saw you have like 700 million tokens, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So that's the circulation.
That's the circulation.
Yeah,
correct.
that's the initial circulation.
Is
So,
it-
plus 1% inflation rate from the proof of stake.
I see. Is there a limit to the transactions per second?
I think it's Najib
Oh.
has it.
Okay.
So the good thing is this is not a financial software. This is not for mass amounts of transactions per second. This is peer-to-peer. So how many transactions do you expect that are going to happen in the one day? I mean, if you are optimistic, it can be 100, 500. But I don't think that at least for now, for our purposes, the capabilities that we see and until we get to the next stage, I think are more than enough. And that you can handle very fast payments and very fast transactions without any doubt.
I see. So if I wanted to build an application or something related to, I wouldn't, like, can I do it with your Rutanio or?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a whole development process that Najib oversees. And we invite you, if you're a developer, we would like to invite you or your colleagues to be part of that. We look forward for developers to join our group, and we are more than happy to train and introduce introduce you to the environment and the tools. This is built on pretty much on the .NET and C# on the Azure
Cloud
platform. So if you are into that's where we are going to take you.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Then we have Najib here. Najib managed the whole developer team. So you guys can connect.
Yeah.
Okay. So just the major change, is it still very, because I know the new major is very into innovation and technology. Is that still has a lot of attention for the city? Or how can we help in that sense? Because I know the government changed and maybe they are also stakeholders on the,
Yeah.
and but if the community, we as a community rise,
I think, as you say, Jorge, it's good news because the new government is very pro-technology. He already mentioned that he wants to continue and even expand the agenda for the city to be more and more innovative. One important clarification is that the project is community-driven. So Ruta N is the articulator, and they articulate this project as they articulate any other. They are welcome to join anytime. They haven't made the decision. They participate very actively. They articulate the whole ecosystem. At any time, they will decide if they join or not, following whatever political agenda or whatever of the needs they have. But definitely, they are very committed to the project as an articulator right now. And we don't see that to change. We see only that to improve as the city is more and more focused on innovation. So,
City of Miami's the best.
okay, with that, I will say let's welcome our panelists. Polly will stay here. And we have Robin. Robin is going to be leading this last session. So we will have Polly that will talk more about Rutanio and all your questions. Najib will be also joining us. He will go a little bit more detail in whatever technical point you want to know both about Exos and Rutanio, but he's also representing Exos in this panel. We have our host from the whole afternoon, Erica, I think you know very well. She is the CEO of the Blockchain Center. And all yours, Robin, thank you for being here. For those that don't know Robin is here from South Florida, actually Delray Beach. She is driving blockchain all around the Florida state, and she's also founder and CEO of a recruiting company. All yours, Robin, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Hello, how's everybody doing? Come crowd in if you're standing around and not paying attention. This next panel, we're going to discuss how blockchain. We're going to discuss how blockchain will transform the global economy. We'll explore the borderless nature, and we'll set some ideas, hopefully, to help you imagine what that ecosystem would look like. My name is Robin DeLisser. I own a recruiting firm named Empower Resources. We are building blockchain and creating a new division named Smart Recruiting, Smart Contracts, Smart Recruiting, right? Which I can talk about later. But I've been in South Florida for a tech and executive recruiter in South Florida for 20 years, and I've been deeply immersed in the blockchain crypto community for the last 2 years. I traveled around the conference circuit and I spoke, and I met, picked out who I thought were the most interesting players, and I created something that I call the Inner Circle, and we all keep in touch with each other, and it's created kind of a little ecosystem. So with that, I'd like to allow everybody to introduce themselves. In 2 or 3 sentences, can you give us a little background? Okay, maybe 4. A little bit of background about your, or overview of your background, rather.
Yes, my name is Najib Kiwan. I'm one of the co-founders of Fluidchains. I've been part of the EXO network, working a lot with exponentiality technologies, and one of them is blockchain, where we applied and help a small, medium business to grow in a way that we can.
Hi, you guys. Probably most of you already know me, but I'm Erica Gemma. I am CEO of the Bitcoin Center Miami, co-founder of this wonderful blockchain center that you guys are in today. My background is kind of in traditional finance and aircraft leasing. Really got a passion for Bitcoin and blockchain and just the transparency behind it and what it's going to do for the future, specifically for, you know, my generation that's kind of looking at the financial system today and wondering what options do we have. So focused on building here in Miami. We have a huge opportunity to make this a tech hub, and with the work of everyone here, there's no doubt in my mind that it's going to happen.
Hello. So again, my name is Policarpo, Poli, and I am in charge of the international outreach for Rutanio. That's my official position. And I am a founder of Fluidchains. As I said, I've been working in developing different projects for the past 5 years. And my passion in all this at this point is to do things that are really going to make a difference, that are going to transform the world. I already did the bazaar thing, the shit coins, good coins, and now let's do something big.
Very good. Thank you. So I'll address this question to each of our panelists. Why do we need a global transformation economy? Ajib?
More than that is at this moment, we are living in a different era, in a digital era, where you know, we have digital government, we have new and emerging technologies, and then we are living in a different space that we were living, and definitely we need a transformation that use all the technologies where we are living right now.
To accomplish what?
To accomplish, of course, a big transformation, and one of those one is in our DNA, that hopefully is in an exponential way, because we have a lot of these technologies that really help us to exponential the growth.
I would say that it's not even that we need a digital transformation economy. I would say that it's going to happen, right? And so us being people that are forward thinking, it's smart for us to get on the front leading edge of that. And I would say that this is just going to happen because, you know, Moore's law shows that technology increases over time at an exponential rate. So I think that there's a lot of technologies that are already developed that maybe have not been allowed to see the day of light because they disrupt a lot of what is currently making people in power money. But I think that now with blockchain, it answers a lot of questions, specifically when it comes to transparency. So it makes me excited because in one sense, when you see all the technologies that are coming up, it kind of is scary, right? Because you're like, okay, wow, like these people that have control now have more control. But when you add it with the transparency that Bitcoin and blockchain provide, it makes me rest a little bit easier. So not that we need one, but it's definitely going to happen and we should get ahead of the curve.
I think that when we talk about global transformation, it's kind of tricky. Some people don't like globalization. So there is this thought that it's bad for some reason. But when you're working with technology and when you're working with different countries, you start finding out that there are peculiarities, there are talents, that not everybody is aware of them. They don't necessarily know how to sell them. And that's why we need new tools, new approaches, new possibilities for those people to have access to the global markets where they can really get the best value for their talents. That's one thing.
So certainly in third world countries or non-developed countries, we see the use case more prominently, but even here in the United States, like what's the US dollar backed by? I think most people don't understand what the US dollar is backed by. Like what is it actually backed by today?
Full faith and credit of the US government and army. Of course.
Is it backed by gold? No. Okay. All right. So at least we agree on that. Okay. And so when we talk about this transformation and this new economy, why is blockchain so important to that? And what's it going to add to it?
I think one of the important things is again, go back to the disruption, is disruption of the traditional power. That the traditional power has been, centralized. Then is always the other way, is disrupt that. That's the reason that the centralized powers not like it too much blockchain, but that's the way to go, is distributor the power and not controlling entities is the way that I see it.
All right, guys, so this is why we need blockchain. I'm specifically going to talk about what I think is the most important blockchain that actually has a, time-stamped, proven record of its success, and that's going to be the Bitcoin blockchain. I think that everybody comes to agreement when they say that our government and governments get corrupt, right? They start out with good intentions, but over time they do become corrupt. I think one of the things specifically in the United States that has made that happen is because of the control of the flow of money. We used to be backed by gold, now we're not. Now we have a Federal Reserve that gets to print, but we have no insight as to where that money is distributed to first, whose hands is it touching, who is the one that is getting the benefits of everybody else's dollars depreciating, right? So there's just no visibility on the back end as to what's currently happening, and I think that with the Bitcoin blockchain, because you have a public record that everyone can see updated in real time, you're gonna see people that they want to remain anonymous, but they also have a level of transparency as to where money is moving that we've never seen before.
And because I feel like fighting and making everybody in the room hate me, I would argue that the only real Bitcoin is BSV, so.
Let the best chain win. I have no preference. I just think that when I think that I'm a really big believer in not shutting down other ideas, right? So it's sometimes it's the fact that the community will immediately shut down BSV. I don't like that. It's the best technology will rise to the top at the end of the day. They don't need everyone to push it, but also I do also think that a lot of these tokens that are being pushed, they don't have decentralization. If your token is not decentralized, then you don't have security. You might as well use a database. So just as long as something is decentralized, I feel like that is the big sell of a blockchain.
And what is decentralized in that context?
So I would say the amount of people that can contribute to saying that a transaction that makes it on the record is correct. So
right. So if a core group of developers could control that, then it would be centralized, not decentralized, right?
I would say that if you have mining power that's saying that this is correct or incorrect, and you have miners that are distributed all over the world, and that is decentralized.
Well, that's the overarching theory, but that's I won't take off the panel for this, but we'll discuss that later.
Okay.
Polly.
Thinking here, I totally agree with you that we need blockchain because of transparency and all those good things we get from it. But most important, what I like the most is that we are creating a more mature society with the help of blockchain and with the help of these cryptocurrencies. First of all, you are learning about money because we were never taught about money. We are learning to protect our money. We are not giving our right to protect or the expectation of protection to a bank or a third party. And we are being able to get others accountable for what happens with the funds that they are
triple ledger
having
system
on the custody. So I think overall, yes, we need something like this to check the old paradigms, if you will.
All right, let's move on to tokenization specifically. How will tokenization impact society and transform the way that we conduct business?
I would say the biggest way that tokenization will transform society is it, and this is a hope, right? Because the reason, the hope is that average people will be able to participate in right now what only accredited investors can participate in. Now this is the hope. Now if the SEC, if these people get all up in it, then we might just end up with the same system but a little bit more high-tech background. However, that would be in the United States. You have people internationally that now can be able to participate in the global economy who couldn't beforehand. So.
Who wants to go next? Najib?
Okay, yeah, I think new business and new organization models is going to be something, and what she says fractional ownership is a hub, and it's a hub on participation. Is no matter right now the models is you need to be big just to be participant in all those. Right now, no matter where you are, with the decentralization that is providing the trust, you can participate even in a minimal part. That is, again, I hope that is not hope, that is going to be a reality.
Right. Great sovereign freedom for anybody, an 11-year-old refugee in Syria, right? Absolutely. And so I'm not going to bring this up to propagate my company, but the reason I got interested in it is I think I see smart contracts changing the way that we conduct business around the world eventually, like on a massive scale. Because if you think about it now, like in my business model, I make an agreement with an executive. They say, hire so-and-so, and we agree on a rate. And then that gets documented in a legal contract, right? And then maybe a lawyer sees it or whatever, but we put this legal contract together, right? And then I go recruit the person. It takes however long to find the person. I put them to work, and I invoice the day that they go to work. Could be 30 days, could be 120 if you're as big as like a Motorola, right? Or if you're in South Florida and you have a lot of zero-sum transient companies that don't care about paying their bills, maybe you never get paid, right? So if we have a system where I can implement an automatic, if we have a system where I can create a software contract and we have a subscription model that automatically every single month or whatever your payment term is, that company pays my company from their wallet to my wallet, I just became my own bank. We're not worrying about paper contracts. We're not worrying about invoicing, collection calls, any of that stuff. So it's a little off the subject of tokenization per se, although it's still cryptocurrency, right? But I see that being one of the biggest changes in businesses and how they get conducted long term, because of course that streamlines and creates such great efficiency. And plus, then you're not beholden to a bank to cash those checks or use only their bank card or credit card, right? So.
I mean, that's a really good point, Robin, just in terms of efficiency, because we do have, fractional ownership of a company is something that already exists. But if you look into the way that that happens on the back end, I think that technology is probably from the early 90s. It's about time that it gets upgraded. There is a problem they call the Dole Foods problem, if you guys know what this is. Anybody want to take a shot at it?
No, go ahead.
Essentially, in more words than less, there were more shares that were trading for Dole Foods on the open market than actually even existed. And so it wasn't really that there were people doing anything malicious. It was just that the technology was old and it's time for an upgrade. And so this is what we hope that hopefully we will see tokenization do, create secondary markets for assets that otherwise don't have secondary markets. And then just do it more efficiently than the system we have right now.
So one of the companies I'm supporting predominantly right now is a fintech company out of the Bay Area. And recruiting for this company, they won't even look at candidates that came from traditional financial services or banking because the technology is antiquated. Their processes are antiquated, and they can't keep up with a fast-paced, innovative company like a fintech. So it just adds to your point, I think. Okay, so we kind of touched on this earlier, but let's go back to it. Many people in the United States don't understand the need for crypto because our currency here is relatively stable. However, in Latin America and other countries, there's real use case for it, right? So Miami is the door to Latin America. Do you think that we have a real opportunity to make this a crypto capital of the Americas, as much of the community is trying to push to do?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, that's what we're doing today. That's what we're building, and with your help and the participation of all here, definitely we are going to achieve it. But it's not as easy as you would expect. I think, and it always was my vision, even when I was doing the mobile development thing in in general, I decided to go first to Latin America, test things there, because there is less regulation, less blocks, and
more corruption.
And then you can come to this market, a more mature market with a better proposal, a better thought of process, and then you can be competitive and have a shot at success.
Ajib?
Yes, I think it's an excellent opportunity, not only for Latin America, but some countries. The lack of trust is something that is, we hope that blockchain is going to resolve and help to, put more trust into the people and remove more powerful and trust on those entities and government. I think it's an excellent idea. Some countries, they already start to do it, and they come and, hey, Miami is right the corner. A lot of people that live here have some influence in those countries, and the idea is like all of us here is help us to promote it and speed up that process that it may take some time.
I would say absolutely. Miami has a chance to become the crypto capital of the Americas. I think that every city in the United States right now has something that they're known for. Miami is kind of known for like babes and for beaches, but we want to be known for babes and beaches.
And ports. We have the ports.
Oh yeah, forgot about those. But even our ports, I mean, just some really interesting projects that are happening here. The Port of Miami, the Miami Airport, and the Beacon Council are working together to make our ports smart. The Blockchain Center is a part of that, right? The Blockchain Center is working with the Miami-Dade public school system, and we've implemented blockchain education into the 4th grade curriculum. And this is county-wide. Also, in terms of a physical location, there is a reason why Nick Spanos chose to open the Bitcoin Center in Miami versus anywhere else, right? I mean, I know you guys, I had told you yesterday, but the city of Miami officially declared this week, January 13th to 20th as Miami Blockchain Week. I mean, there's an official declaration every year. That's awesome, right? Last night we had the Miami Downtown Development Authority here. They're actually sponsoring a job fair for us. Right now, too, if you look at what's happening in this downtown area, right now, everybody knows Brickell. Brickell's beautiful, second most international banks in the United States. That's also another reason why it could work here. But when we look at what's happening here in actual downtown Miami, the best way I can say it is there's really nowhere to go but up, okay? And the people that are trying to push it up are trying to make this a millennial tech hub area. So if everybody in this room is in consensus that blockchain is going to be the next internet, then we know that in this millennial tech hub, a major technology that's going to be taking place here is going to be using blockchain. So just the fact that we kind of are in a perfect storm. I mean, Florida, out of all the states right now, the largest migration of people and of talent is moving to Florida. Huge brain drain from New York. They can't stand the weather or the taxes. Same in California, same in San Francisco. So Miami is a viable city. And I think that when you look at that, we have no state income tax. We have a local government that's very, very supportive. When you look on a state level as well, I mean, some people from the Blockchain Center last February, we had gone to Tallahassee to lobby for a blockchain bill to be passed. A bunch of us went up there, we talked to our senators, we talked to our representatives. Across the board, unanimously, this blockchain bill passed. Nobody voted no on it. That's unheard of. It passed, and guess what? The mayor of Miami is now on this thing called the Blockchain Task Force. So I think that, you know, we are definitely in a perfect storm here, specifically in the Blockchain Center building. We have a lot of support from the city. And, you know, just to back it all up, it's not just that we've been trying this for the last, 6 months, however long we've been open. It's that Miami is already the Silicon Valley of Latin America, right? There's a huge joke that says, what's the best city in Latin America to do business in? And people say Miami. Or people say like, oh, I love to go to Miami because it's so close to the United States. I mean, this is already running jokes that have been going on for a while, and I think we're just in the perfect storm here. So if there's any city that would be the blockchain capital of the world or of the Americas in the United States, it's only Miami.
Yeah, I would add, I agree with everything that you said. I would add that we also have opportunity zones in Miami. So you have tax incentives for investors, and then you have very favorable tax laws for businesses to move into the area as well, all throughout the state of Florida.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So based on what we've seen so far, what do each of you envision for the future? Where can we go?
You guys should move to Miami. Set up your companies here. We'll help you out. We can, you can move in here. We can get you some good real estate in the area and just be a part of the wave. I also think that, there's a lot of different industries that are going to be disrupted by blockchain technology, and we should really keep our eyes on banking first.
Yeah, what I was thinking, just to add to that, is that it doesn't take us that long that it took us with the internet. I think we are right now, with the benefit of new technologies, that the adoption of blockchain is just to the mass. It goes faster, and I think it's a reality, and I think it's going to happen. But it's still work to do.
Would you go ahead and give the example of some of the stuff you guys are doing in Medellin? I know people in the room probably heard it, but people that are watching live stream or watching this video later, I think it's a very interesting use case.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what we are doing is what we are doing with Exo right now is more on a global basis. With Rutanio is local economy, and we are working with many entities, and it's something that is important to highlight is Medellin is one of the most innovative cities on Latin America, and to highlight, it was named or included on the 4 Industrial Revolution City, known that the other 4 or 5 cities in that group is already developed countries. And the idea is how to duplicate this initiative on developing countries in some other developing countries. That is super important because now the vision is just to close that gap between developing countries and developed countries. And Medellin is a good example. It has been more than 10 years to be labeled as that city that you cannot visit anymore. And this is something that is receiving all the support from the local government. That is all the push on innovation. Medellin creates some entity with local money from the government. For every kilowatt that the city consumes is a certain amount of money that it go only for the innovation. That's the business model. that is being used, and then is something that it can adopt it for many other cities too.
If I heard you correctly, they get a token that has money issued to it from the government.
Not precisely.
okay.
What I want to just be clear is they is something that entity that is called Ruta N, that Ruta N is funded by the electricity that everybody consumes in the city. Means for every kilowatt that the city consumes, the government, the local government owns the electricity company, the power company, and then is one X amount of money is for that particular entity that is called Ruta N, and Ruta N is only focused in innovation. And it has been 10 years focused on innovation, means it does not depend only in some funding from some place. It's already funded to create new projects, and those projects is what it has been pushing a lot the city into all of these new innovation process.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure I understood you this time. So the company is given a certain amount of money back from the local government for reducing their use of non-sustainable energy.
Not only, no, it's not
Darn it.
only for the specific, you are mentioning a specific project. No, I don't want to be specific. It's all related to innovation. Innovation is not only for that.
Right.
And this is any kind of energy that it come. I don't want to see that it's only renewable energy.
Okay.
It's any kind of power they add into that business too, but it's more about the power that is consumed by the people. You know, people pay X amount of money, then X amount of that money go to fund innovation for the city. And then that's part of the Rutanio project is this is Ruta N is articulated by that, and then this is part like, okay, we need to do something not only in blockchain. They are doing projects with IoT, there are projects with AI. That's part of the innovation. And then, okay, let's just do testing. Let's see how we're going to go with project like a blockchain, and then Rutanio is one of them.
So your question was about the future, right?
Yeah.
What we see in the future. I would like to see a smart city powered by a blockchain or blockchain technologies. The only block I see today is legislation, is clarity and certainty on the what to expect as an investor, as a developer, and as an entrepreneur, bringing that type of experiences to Miami. I think that once we have that clear, then all the rest will fall in place. So, and as we move, bringing this type of projects and getting the community and the work that the Blockchain Center is doing with the local authorities, showing them that blockchain is not an enemy of the system or nothing like that, then we'll be eventually moving to remove those blocks and then allowing for the growth of these technologies.
So before we wrap up, I'll go ahead and open the floor to any questions that the audience may have. Don't all jump at once. You want to come up and we'll hand you a microphone?
Thank you, Polly. Well, in this hypothetical situation, let's say that I am a freelancer from an interior design, and I know nothing about technical issues, but I am futurist. I like to read a lot, and I found out about those marketplaces, and I think, oh, that's so cool to offer my services. So my question is, what I should expect from a marketplace to offer me as a freelance? How do I trust them? Which are the risks involved for me? And which is the support I should expect from one of these marketplaces?
Okay, I'll take the first stab at the recruiter. So we live in this world that's creating more gig economy now, right? So if you take examples of these websites that have created the gig and produced or helped people like yourself that are freelancers, you could think of it as that application could be on the blockchain. When they bid and make their decisions, it's executed through the blockchain, and it's executed through smart contracts. So your payment is guaranteed, right? Things like that. your work could be validated through the blockchain and it's immutable. So then once it's verified, it's going to forever remain on the blockchain. Those are some of the things I would see. And it's going to depend on different companies providing those different applications, right? But those are some of the things that jump out when you ask the question, and we can certainly let anybody else answer.
What I see in both marketplaces is, and I will go very specific in Exos, one of the biggest values is the community is quite spread, and even transfer value means fiat from small city to another person that is doing a job. I would say 30 to 40% of the cost was in the transaction. We have very specific, cases. Someone do a job in Colombia for someone in Switzerland, and the middle banks were getting $80 on each side. Then that's one right now is no middleman. Is a blockchain entity or blockchain that is doing the transaction a minimal fee. Minimal is almost zero. And now it's not that middleman that is the banks on both sides that is taking that. On the case of Rutanio, I see it in pretty much in the same line, but I think is a community that it has talent resources that is being exported to a bigger community with those needs and very competitive prices and a good time zone, and it let that interchange to happen and both sides. One that is looking for an opportunity to get a job done, and the one that is looking for to provide that service.
Dr. Craig Wright always says you should get paid for the work that you do, right? The true value versus the middleman taking such a huge piece of it. He gave a great example of Google the other day, that if instead of, and these are microtransactions, right? Instead of Google and Facebook and Twitter having your information, right? And then they profit off of selling your information, right? What if you profited off of your information and you got paid for the content that you provided or whatever work that you provide, right? It's greatly eliminating it. And he gave, I'm not going to remember the estimate, but I want to say that if Google changed their parameters and let people operate under that other model, their profit would be like 80-fold what it is today. So you think of microtransactions, like in my business, I could take micro payments or much lower payments than what I normally do, right? But if it serves a greater good and I'm able to do more volume, and obviously then those micro payments are actually more rewarding for me, right?
I would say, because you're referring to a marketplace, are you specifically referring to the Fluidchains marketplace? No.
No, I would like to join marketplaces because I see that is a cool way to offer my services, but I don't know really which marketplace should I join, which offer me what I need, which should I trust, mostly that, and what is the support I would like to have from them.
Yeah, I would say I don't personally have experience with marketplaces, but I do know that public blockchains like Bitcoin, they make a new marketplace that makes it so that way, let's say you are a freelancer and you're selling your services, you're now able to touch people in other countries without having to worry about capital controls in that sense. And also too, I mean, you put a smart contract on top of your services, and that way you're not having to worry about getting paid out. It would be where you do what you need to do and automatically you get paid, right? So it's just, like as Robin said earlier, efficiencies that we add. And another thing that's cool too, in a public blockchain setting, which is not a marketplace, but it's a new marketplace that's coming, is that you have the ability to now move globally and keep your wealth intact versus having to keep it in the currency of the country that you're domiciled in.
Yes, I have some experience with the cryptocurrency marketplaces like OpenBazaar. And one of the options you have is to build escrow systems pre-programmed within the platform that allow you to receive payments once the task has been completed. This goes together with a vetted community. So not everyone, probably at this stage, not everyone can just freely participate and you can guarantee that they are going to play by the rules. So again, you need some sort of an initial arbiter that is going to say, okay, you can play, you cannot play, you're playing good, you're not playing good. And once all the players are playing the same game, then you can remove that figure and let the code take over. So those experiences exist, and I think they are a good alternative, at least, for you.
So I would also say that in the crypto or blockchain world, there's different companies coming out with different applications all the time, which is kind of what I was going with earlier. So you'd have to look at what applications are out there, think about, take it backwards and say, okay, what's going to grow my business? What's going to make it more profitable or streamline it, make it more efficient, whatever, right? And then seek out those companies that are providing those types of applications, and then do your own research as to whether or not they're stable and legit and going to be around in a year or not.
Thank you.
Next up.
Oh, you have that.
Well, speaking of legitimacy and changing and technology changing, I have some tokens from some wallets that, the wallet's changed, and, how do you stay on top of this stuff? I basically lost some tokens. Is there a value in creating some sort of insurance where, like, every transaction goes to a third-party escrow that can say, let's say they stole my tokens, right? Or X or Y, right? Is there some sort of...
Wouldn't that kind of be the antithesis of what Bitcoin is designed to do?
Now, for consumers, for regular consumers, I get what you're saying. Yeah, this is against the law, but
So I hate to keep talking about it, but it gives a perfect example. I was at a conference in Vegas or LA. Somebody said, in the future, you won't use banks. You know what you use banks for? To hold a fraction of your key. So that one bank has this, one bank has this. If you're watching the Craig Wright case, if anybody's watching it here in Palm Beach County, one of the big cruxes of it has been that they had the scheme, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it, but it's basically exactly that. So they, theoretically, he's Satoshi and the other people that helped him create Bitcoin, divided these keys into a trust, and they were then distributed between different people, and then bonded. They're supposed to be delivered by bonded couriers at certain dates because they wanted the market to have enough time to develop and for the Bitcoin to actually grow and companies to start developing in it and for it to start getting used, right? So again, I'm not trying to sell you guys on Craig. What I'm saying is if you think about it in a way, could there be a system that, you have pieces of your keys stored in different locations? You never want any one entity holding your key all together, like the whole key, right? Just like you don't want to sit anywhere digitally, right? I mean, that would be the antithesis of...
Well, I'm not saying a bank. What I'm saying is some sort of insurance company where you choose, you have the option of saying, hey, I have $1 million in tokens, for every transaction that I play, I want to have this third-party insurance company that ensures that they don't steal my tokens or X or Y. Because in the future, I mean, you're talking about, in the future, we're all going to have these shared currencies. In the future, quantum tech is going to override this entire...
I don't believe we'll have shared currency. I personally believe we'll have one digital currency that's used predominantly around the world.
Using encryption keys?
Before I die, but at least definitely before the time my children die.
Using encryption keys?
And I'm not even supporting that whole bank theory. I just thought it was a very interesting idea. And then if you think about the scheme under it, right?
And also too, just on the point of quantum, I mean, let's say that Moore's law is real, right? Quantum computing is growing, and Google said that they did something that I don't really believe that they did, and neither do many legacy educational institutions.
It'd be a classical problem using quantum tech, yes.
But also, I mean, if you look at encryption isn't staying stagnant. Encryption is also advancing. So you can't, it's not, quantum grows and encryption stays the same. So you're going to see a balance.
And I have seen companies, whether they have actually come into production or not is questionable. I haven't followed them, but I've certainly met companies and people that said that they were working on exactly what you're describing. So I would do some research on that. There might be some out there already, but certainly the thought is out there in the community.
There are some quantum-proof encryptions, but none of them are being used on blockchain. I mean, maybe there's one or two companies that is thinking about it, but most companies aren't thinking about that issue.
But they are thinking about the insurance and how to be able to back you and.
For me, the interesting part is for the regular consumer, right? Because the regular consumer doesn't want to have $1,000 that has disappeared because he didn't change his wallet, or he didn't, or he got his password was cat, and somebody was able to, like they've been doing with Ethereum, right? Like you put an easy password and they go.
Or some guy on crypto the other day that he wrote down the passcode for his wife, put this some really secure where you never forget it, so she put it on the fridge.
So how do you help the consumer to make this a play where people are actually getting into this. Because right now, it's very few people who are doing it, and the people who are, most of them are coming out like, man, this stuff is dropped in value. You know, I have to worry about, you know, stuff that's, you know, at one point was worth $1,000, let's say. Now it's worth pennies, and I have to change the wallet, and I have to worry about my encryption. And it's like, I don't even want to worry about the hassle.
It's a nascent industry. This is going to continue to happen as we develop and we evolve, right? Until we hit Moore's law, which in my opinion, Moore's law is when we hit the majority of the world using some type of peer-to-peer electronic cash system, right? But yeah, it's a problem. Exchanges are these wallets that go, all of a sudden your founder dies and all your money's gone, right? Come on. So we have to just keep aware and do your research and keep educated. Right.
Yeah. So I would say one message that cryptocurrency brings that really needs to be reiterated is this idea of personal accountability, right? Your seed phrase is 12 to 14 words. Remember that shit, you know? Like, that's all I can say. And
distribute it.
Or you know, there's a lot of simple ways that you can do that. Tell your mom half. Tell your brother the other half. If something happens to you, you come together. I mean, these are very basic ways that will happen, but as Robin said, it's a nascent industry. With time, these issues will be addressed. There are companies specifically that were even here today that are working on that. But right now, you know, people get to be lazy because we have $250,000 FDIC insured that your government fiat money will be refunded. When if you really know how the banking system works, they're not going to refund you $250,000. They're not. Is that
not exactly what Bitcoin is designed to do? I think I can think for myself and figure out where to invest my money and where to store my money. I don't need a bank to tell me. I don't need an investor, right? I mean, really.
So there are people that do. I mean, there's a reason the banking system exists and it's been so popular. But in another sense, there are people, and the people who really built this technology, there are people like myself who are like, you know, I might lose my money, but I'd rather have me lose my money than you lose my money, you know?
Drop the mic. All right, who's next?
Hey guys, thank you for the presentation. I had a question about, I'm from Colombia as well, so cryptocurrencies are very common in Colombia more than the US, almost 20%. Turkey's #1. And I see the implementation of cryptocurrencies or people knowing about cryptocurrency very slow, like at 5% compared to other countries. In Colombia, is it being kind of influenced by the inflation and corruption? So my question is, like, how can we get the cryptocurrencies to be implemented or be known faster in the US versus, I guess, just seeing other countries and we're just moving at such a slow rate versus other countries?
I'm just going to say, to be honest, like, I actually don't even want the United States to get ahead of the game because I think we have a lot of wealth already, and I think it would be really cool to see, you know, a little equalizer between countries that maybe need it from a needs basis. I think that's why I also am a huge fan of Miami, because there's a Latin American culture here, even though we are in the United States. But I think that I don't mind if US is one of the last adopters in here. I would rather see the countries that, you know, that there's this example, right? In Latin America, they never got phone lines because they immediately jumped to cell phones. They never needed to lay down the ground. And I think you're gonna see that happen. And when you have a lot of Americans who are like, oh, it's a scam, it's because they have a relatively stable currency and they need to get out of their worldview anyway. So if they miss the boat, like, I'm okay with that.
I would also say you're doing it, right? Simply coming to these meetups, having these conversations, right? You're part of it right now, right? You're changing the future. Also, I mean, who are the first central banks that are going to develop their own digital cash system based off fiat, right? I mean, when this starts happening, then a lot of people are going to wake up. Libra, you know, as much as I think it's a shit thing, like, it was at least good in the sense that it would be opening massive amount of eyes, right? So if central banks start, right, we've had a top Federal Reserve official say that digitizing our fiat here in America is inevitable. China's currently working on it fast and furious. They just changed legislation last week. So those types of things, you know, start waking people up. Like, now everybody's heard about Bitcoin almost. Like, your grandma's heard about Bitcoin, right? So they may not understand it. They may not be so quick to jump and use it. But all of these things add up until we evolve, and then hit Moore's Law, like Erica has referenced.
So I'm from New York. I've lived in San Francisco. I actually agree with Erica about Miami. But I don't believe we should ever store private keys with a bank. I think the Winklevoss twins have a horrible system. And the reason why is because when I booked this event through my Wells Fargo account, they locked me out of my own bank account. And
Why the hell are you still with Wells Fargo? First of all, let's start there.
That's a good question, and it's a long story.
Go
and
ahead.
it
Now tell us
started
the story,
years
though.
ago.
This is interesting.
But basically, to get back my account, I had to, first of all, hack my own account. I had to email some congressional members and Warren Buffett and some other stuff to get my account back. So I don't believe we should do that. And I think in South America, there's a particular problem where they don't have trust for the banks and for the government, and their currencies are collapsing, especially in Venezuela. So
And
I guess
Argentina.
my question is, what specific initiatives are helping people in South America, particularly Venezuela, to basically be their own bank?
Maduro and what he's doing, I think that's the biggest seller for Bitcoin.
Well, for those of us that don't know, you got to expand upon that.
So we have, Venezuela is a complicated topic. I mean, the concept of cryptocurrency is great that they are bringing it into the scene, that they are teaching people to use it. That's beautiful. However, I think we all agree here that the Petro is the biggest fraud ever in crypto. I will say it's worse than BitConnect. Honestly, it's a thing that there is no block explorer, that they probably minted 1 trillion petros, and what they parse as the blockchain is missing blocks, so you don't know where those funds went and where. So, I mean, you cannot build a real economy on that. Other than that, the fact that people are using wallets, that they are learning about public and private keys, that they are, they are even doing trading, because the only way of changing that they call a crypto into bolívares is via some trading platform they created for this. So people are also getting the first taste of that. So from that point of view, it's good. Eventually it's going to work against them, because then when things settle down and they are out of the picture, this will stay. So I think it's a positive overall compared to others.
And I would use, I can't give you any examples off the top of my head, but I would use the analogy of Netscape and Alta Vista, right? Does anybody ever use Alta Vista or Netscape anymore? No, they don't exist, but we all use Google or Chrome or Brave or whatever, right? Any other questions from the audience? No? All right, so I guess did anybody see that Toyota's building a smart city? Came out this week. Toyota is building a smart city. And one in Japan, they're a factory site that I guess is no longer being used. They're turning it into this whole smart city. And I don't know if they have any plans for blockchain or cryptocurrency, but I thought really cool. They're using it to learn with the, what's it called, LiDAR and self-driving cars and like test out all these new cars. So I can imagine if it's going to be a smart city, they're probably going to use blockchain and crypto in some way too. Pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the final thing I'll leave everybody with is I'll ask each of our panelists, what's the greatest takeaway or thing that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I think we covered a lot of things. Like the questions, I really appreciate them. If there was one big takeaway that I would want everyone to leave with, it's this idea that we have been a little bit programmed to be fearful of holding our own stuff and being accountable for our own things, and just to not be, because the thing about blockchain, and you kind of touched on this too, but with just because it's not held in a bank is, we don't know who these people are, most of them, right? We don't know who's behind the scenes. There are people that could make mistakes on the back end because they're actually being malicious, or because they genuinely just made a mistake. So there's a new technology that's making it so we don't have to trust these third parties, and it's not like it's a new technology that's making for new human behavior. It's actually reverting us back to what we used to have before things were centralized into third parties. So know that the human brain has been here before, and we can do it again.
I think the effort, most of us work in multiple projects, related or not with blockchain, but I think one of the important things beyond the blockchain is the community. I think all of these projects are where they are is because the community. Building the communities for us is to be the highest priority. We are doing it. We are learning in a hard way that must be the central. And at the end, even with blockchain, don't forget that we are all humans. And I say that because blockchain, the communities, and all of us are facing right now, I would say, the third person that is the regulator. And the regulator now is a human person that is facing the fear not to do it or to do it. Then it's just to try to establish that, okay, at one moment or the other one, those regulators are going to do the best for everyone. And then it's here the communities that we may change that one too, or at least to challenge as a community for a better way for the community itself.
Okay, and my final word on this is that we are building real use cases, and many people are building real use cases using blockchain technology. So it's not just what you are used to see, again, on the trading boards. It's not just the traditional and silly Twitter market pump and dump and all that. There are serious projects, serious ambitions, serious vision, and as we said at the beginning, what we want is to do is to transform the world and using the best technologies available. Okay, thank you.
All right, so mine is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin specifically, will be the most radical revolution in human history. I do believe that we will have one digital currency used predominantly around the world, maybe by the time I die, but definitely by the time my children die. And I definitely believe that Bitcoin BSV is the only real Bitcoin that is decentralized. It will prevent fraud, zero-sum games and businesses, and it allows for it does not allow for anonymity. It allows for accountability, right? So one of the first things that Craig Wright said that we'll see happen is the central banks will create a digital currency based off their fiat, right? Well, hello. Nice of you to join us. So we're starting to see those central banks. So I think the first phase of it, well, the banks, the financial institutions, which, by the way, were busy filing the most patents in the world while they were saying that it was BS, right? Financial institutions, banks, central governments or central reserves will start digitizing and creating currencies, right? And really build and evolve on the blockchain. And then eventually we'll hit Moore's Law and a majority of the world will start using it, and it won't be, and the regulators will work along with us trying to understand how to navigate these uncharted waters, right? And the regulators will come out with their laws and their policies and whatever, and we'll try and abide by them, right? And eventually when it hits Moore's Law, it's no longer controllable. You have a digital currency that is borderless, cannot be controlled by one government, not one political party. It creates economic opportunity for everyone in the world, and it creates sovereign freedom. And I think that that's what's the most profound thing about this new transformation economy that we're going into.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you all for coming today.
Thanks, you guys.